you don't know what you can go through and what you can survive until you have to do it.
Right.
And I think that that's why it's so important to know what's inside of you and know the commitments you have made to other people, to yourself, to God, because there may come a point in your life where that's all you have to hold on to. And you've got to hold on to that to have some kind of foundation for when everything else has changed.
Welcome to the Recovery Valve Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Kennedy. Today's episode is brought to you by Candace Riddle Realty, Goldman, Norval Fixture and Equipment, and a special thank you to all of our other supporters of the Recovery Valve Podcast. After that moment, you had to plan a funeral and do all of that. We don't have to talk about that. I'd like to shift gears if it's okay and just talk about the recovery side of things, like beyond the day of the funeral, which I remember that day. I also feel like, and you guys may have already known each other, but I feel like this is when this little sorority pizza squad group was kind of created, of a group of your girlfriends being there for you. And I think the importance of small group and community should be just mentioned, and how important it was for you to have somebody to vent to that wasn't your husband.
Right.
That's your people, your playground, your playmates, your play habits, and how important it is to have, good leadership around you. I remember Wes not being at work for a while, and then when you came back, I remember just trying to make it like it was when you were at work. I didn't want it to, I picked on you, you picked on me, we hugged when we needed to hug, and I looked at you in the eyes and told you I loved you when I needed to. But then, Wes, I remember you mentioning Pizza Squad for the first time on the day of the funeral.
Yes.
And you were thankful for friends for your wife because she needed that small group. Am I saying that right?
Yes. So I was very adamant in my soul that I had to give Graham's eulogy. I had to be able to tell his story. And so during that, I was thanking a lot of different people. And one of them was the Pizza Squad. And Kelly had talked about the Pizza Squad before because they had a text thread with these girls that she hung out with. But I don't think it had ever been like
a
public.
lot of different personalities in that text thread
Pizza
too.
Squad. So where did that even come
from? I don't know why
Kelly?
you're telling this anyway. Like,
Well, I just teed it up because he was saying it from the stage.
Yes.
But
no, so we just had a text thread of some other like moms from church, and we were talking about different things. And one day somebody said, "Oh, look at these necklaces. It's a pizza slice. We should get these, blah, blah, blah." And then somebody named the thread Pizza Squad. And so then Wes said that in the eulogy, like from the stage. And I feel like I was a little embarrassed. Not majorly, but I was just kind of like, didn't know he was going to do that. And we were all just kind of like, okay, that felt weird because it's just like the name of this. And then it just kind of like grew from there. So anyway, so Pizza Squad is what I said, just like, my group of girlfriends, we like go on trips together and, try to, hang out and do dinner, but we mainly have a text thread that's just going, daily.
But you guys,
It's insane text thread.
Our wives are in it. Yes. And so I don't want to know anything about any of it.
Please.
But I can tell you this, that I think it's a true definition of a small group. I mean, because you guys talk about life. You've gone through different things. You've gone through loss of children, parents or grandparents, different life events.
Yeah.
That it's important to have that. Outside of your marriage, you have a small group to turn to.
Yeah.
I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know a lot of times what I feel like was the hardest part in the months immediately after was like, I'm having a good day, Wes is having a bad day. I feel kind of guilty that I'm having a good day. He doesn't want to bring me down, vice versa. And just not being on the same like schedule, I guess, of the ups and downs. So it was good to have like a more neutral party to be able to talk to on whichever like side you were kind of on that day.
Yeah. So from I'm just going to use the word recovery, from a recovering standpoint, from the day of the funeral, I've always wanted to know, recently we had a family member that lost a son and he was 17 years old. Is there ever a time, not that you get over it, but where you both start having good days at the same time?
I feel like the first year was kind of a blur of, still that kind of like raw recovery. I felt like that second calendar year, I guess, or the second year was more of kind of when we started the like normal life healing kind of time. I don't know if you would agree with that, but
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think we were just surviving and doing what we had to do to get through day to day.
And in that year, I'm thinking through, like, did you guys try to go on date nights? Did you try to, like, what did you do to
I feel like every
work?
night was a date night.
Did. Well, we definitely did because for, I don't know if I would say date night perhaps, but like, the first, you're pregnant and then you've got a newborn and then we had this other stuff happen where we were like tied to the house all the time. So I do feel like we started going and trying to get out and do things like that we hadn't been able to do.
Bring some normalcy back.
So we went and saw Dolly Parton and we, you know what I mean? Like we went and did little trips and stuff like that.
That's important. You don't need to stay in the house.
Yeah.
Right. And I think Kelly has said this a lot, is that at that point we were still parents. We just didn't have a child.
Yeah.
Okay. That's never even thought about that.
You probably put that in words better than me. It's this empty, the vibes are just, the house is so empty and so quiet. It's almost like sometimes you can't stay there.
Yeah.
And I think at that point is where we said, we are parents. We think, we can raise, children in this world that can be productive. We know that we have a calling. I consider a calling on your life to be a parent.
Yeah.
And so then we said, we can't take the chance of this happening again. Every pregnancy is 25% chance this will happen. At that point, there was no cure or no treatment for SMA.
Yeah, I was like, there's still no cure, but there was no treatment.
There was no treatment for SMA. And so that's when we seriously said,
so there was no treatment, but they just wanted you to keep comfort, I guess.
Yeah, we were in palliative care hospice
Gotcha.
for Graham.
Yes.
All right. So I'm ready to shift gears because, like I said, this has just been heavy, and I don't want you guys just to be upset on this podcast the whole time. I want you to be able to smile and laugh. Yeah. But time goes by, and then the conversations happen about either having more children or doing what was on your heart as a child, and you guys considered adoption. How did that come about? After a certain amount of time goes by.
This is another crazy story. So we had on our hearts to adopt from foster care, just because that's a huge need. That's just what we felt like the Lord was telling us to do. So we went through, did like the stacks, literal like stack this thick of paperwork, like 4 inches for the podcasters. And
because it's hard to adopt.
It is literally, the questions are like, it's just very, very in-depth, which I mean, it should be, but it took a long time. And I really couldn't sleep great during those times. And so Wes would be asleep and I would be sitting up at the dining room table, just like writing, answering all these questions. So we did that. We had to take some classes in South Carolina. And so we went there. While we were there, I'm still friends with these people on Facebook today. There were a couple other couples that I don't remember if they had kids in their house at the time. Anyway.
When you say on Facebook, was there like a group that you were a part of?
Well, so when we were at that class, we met two other couples that were in there, and they were like, "Are you a part of this South Carolina adopt from foster care group or whatever?" I was like, "No." So they invited us, and then a couple months later, I'm not sure exactly on the timeline, I want to say like maybe 5-6 months later, there was a post in there, and this lady was saying, "I'm like 6 weeks pregnant with twins. I can't keep them. I can't parent them. What's my first step? Blah, blah, blah." So of course, everyone in that group messaged her because it's an adoption group. So I Facebook messaged her and said, just kind of gave the story. I joke and say, if you're going to have a sob story, like have the worst sob story kind of thing. So she messaged us back. casually said to us, I was like, I just messaged this girl about adopting her twins.
Okay, let's unpack that a little.
We got to unpack that because I'm like, is this page for parents that want to become adoptive parents?
Yes, it's for people who
but
are
then it's
same
also
for
lets
us, like,
people in that want to.
I guess she just infiltrated she just got in the
That's
group.
why I was like, is it?
She wasn't trying to. She I guess found. I've never actually asked her how she found that page.
I'm glad she did.
But yeah. Anyway,
So
go ahead.
literally, I tell people that we adopted our twins from Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I
I mean, it's not a lie, but
Yeah.
And
a lot to unpack.
what happened is that I think my parents were at our house, and I'm sitting there casually talking to my parents. You know, we're in this season that we're going through, and she goes, "I just adopted a mom about adopting twins," and I just kind of stopped and looked at her, like,
I think
where
you
did
kind of
this
like
even-
rolled your eyes
think-
and were like,
I was like,
"You're ridiculous."
You're crazy. Like,
Yeah.
why would you message like we're going to adopt twins on Facebook? I need to go back to this pointless conversation with my dad or whatever is going on right now. And lo and behold,
Yep. She messaged me back, and what I think, spoiler, we did end up adopting those twins. They are now almost 7. But what I think we kind of bonded over, me and her, the birth mom, is that she has told me later that, like, I also have an idea of what she would be going through of losing a child in a different way, but similar feelings. And so I think she knew that I would be very respectful of that and very just aware of that situation too. So
I've never thought about it that way. Yeah, that's a different kind of loss.
So
she has her own story to tell.
Right.
but
I don't want to
there
get into
are-
hers.
The way that it went back and forth and the way that we ended up with our daughters is, I would say miracle after miracle that it worked out the way it did.
From the time of that message,
From a Facebook message.
when did the girls come move in?
Nothing that ended up with these 2 precious girls in our house. I kind of laugh when I say precious because right now they're on my nerve. But
You have a whole TikTok about it.
I need to look and see what month that I'm guessing like September-ish, 2017 is my guess.
Yeah.
And
And
they were
then
born
they were
in-
born in February 2018. So
and it ended up to where we had about a month before they were born to do all the paperwork and get them into our home because it was back
because
and
it
forth.
switched from, it wasn't through foster care. She wasn't like in the system for that. So it was a private adoption, but we didn't go through what makes a private adoption so expensive is like the adoption agencies, the people who are matching families. And obviously we matched ourselves. So we just had to do the like attorney fees.
Just do the legality
and,
of it.
Yeah. And like the home study and stuff. So it was significantly less expensive than
You cut
if
out the
we had gone
middleman.
through.
I mean, they do.
Oh, yeah.
That's a business for them. I
Yeah,
guess.
for sure. Yeah.
It was about 20% of the cost of a private
Wow.
adoption.
Yeah.
So
And the girls came to live with you after they were born. Soon after they were born.
Yes, they were.
you
we
brought
were
them
at the
home from the
hospital.
We were at the
when they were
hospital.
born.
I took birth mom to like several appointments and stuff throughout, and she was on board. She did have some times where she like wavered back and forth, but for the most part, through the whole pregnancy, I was seeing her every month, every couple months, and in contact with her and stuff like that. So
And it was Super Bowl Sunday of 2018.
yes,
And the church at that point did big Super Bowl blowouts. And so I had a ton on my mind. I was in the shower getting ready to go to church. And the girl's birth mother called Kelly and said, "My water broke. The girls are coming today." And Kelly came and told me that the girls were being born. And I said, "No, I've got to work. I've got to go to church." And she's like, "You are not going to church today.
Yeah.
We are."
Text Todd.
We
We'll
are-
see you on Monday.
Yeah, we are having babies today. And so we were the first people to see them.
How excited were you guys? Did it bring some kind of a joy immediately back to the house when you walked in the door with the girls?
for sure. And that's what I tell the girl's birth mom, because when we're still in contact and when we ended up getting pregnant with March, she was kind of open with me. She's like, I'm not mad, but like I'm kind of in my feelings about y'all like having a biological kid, like if you would have known you could do this, would you have adopted are you going to love the girls less, stuff like that. And I just told her, I was like, listen, I was like, you and the girls, I'm not over exaggerating, literally saved my life. I was like, I don't know that I could have they brought me back to life and had a purpose and all of that. And we, I'm very open with her that like, I know, like I had a best day. You had like the worst day, we don't forget that. And I don't want to like minimize that, but I also told her, I was like, I don't want you to think that what you did is minimized because now we, are having another baby or whatever, that like, I wish I could go back and not like, I wouldn't have got those girls if I knew that, a biological woman was coming, whatever. So,
because let's talk about March. I mean, surprise.
Oh my God. Yeah.
we didn't know after the twins if our family was complete. And so we didn't know what that looked like. Mm-hmm. And we put it in, we said, God, if you want our family to be bigger, you will provide the opportunity to adopt again, because we now know that can just happen a lot differently than you expect it to happen. Or we were also not preventing a pregnancy, because what had happened at that point is there have been treatments that have come out since Graham passed that can literally change the genetic makeup of a child to where the impact of SMA is not necessarily fatal.
Yeah. So it becomes from a point of just comfort or hospice to a point of treatment.
Exactly.
And sustainability. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And we could do a whole nother episode of the podcast. So what happened with March is that she was also diagnosed with SMA in utero, which was another trauma point for Kelly and myself. Kelly, in her motherly instincts, I think kind of knew, just from, March being part of her. When I found out the news, it was a traumatic event for me because I had to relive so much of that stuff that we had gone through with Graham. But at the same point now, every day of March's life is a miracle. Mm-hmm. She's been treated at St. Jude, which is, I think probably most people know that it's
can't say enough good things. Yeah.
If not one of the best children's hospitals in the world. Mm-hmm. We're working with the doctor who helped develop the treatments for SMA. And he knew all about March from before the day she was born. Someone from St. Jude was in Augusta the day March was born to do research and
so March is a pioneer.
I was going to say March can have a juice if she's out there screaming. Here's a juice bottle.
Movie star time. Mm-hmm. So we just take a quick break, but March, we were talking about you. Mm-hmm. So March is, I mean, I don't want to say, but she's a pioneer of the treatment of SMA to an extent, right? She is a
pioneer. She has. And some of that, medical stuff is, kind of secret and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But essentially, the way she has been treated for SMA was the first time anybody's been treated, given the new medicines, the way that she has been treated with them. And she does have delays.
But we have no medical equipment in our house. She is drinking, eating, breathing, coughing, all those things. So as always say, we can deal with some physical therapy. We can deal with that.
Yeah. You got 3 girls. So Wes, you're building a sorority over there.
My
you
gosh,
you got 3 girls.
3 girls. They were. What? We had fun times this morning, just even getting here.
Yeah.
So,
well,
but it's I went back and I feel like this is like emotional torture of yourself, Kelly. Yeah. And I will say sometimes you just go back and look at points in your life. And we have had, you can imagine with 7-year-old twin girls, just the fights and arguments and stuff that go on in your house and how frustrated you can end the day.
Mm-hmm. I argue with a 7-year-old pretty much every day. So if there's 2 of them, it would be a Jerry Springer episode.
And so I was saying that I gave the eulogy at Graham's funeral. And as weird as it is, it's really one of the most proud moments I've had to be able to get up there and tell his story to people like that. And so I went back and read the eulogy about a month ago.
Did you really?
And something that I had written, and I believe that I was empowered. The only way I could write that in that moment was to be empowered by the Holy Spirit to do that, for other things that people might need to hear. And so I wrote in there that if your child can laugh, enjoy every laugh. If they can dance, let them keep dancing. And if they can take a breath, because at the end, Graham couldn't take a breath. If they can take a breath, enjoy each breath. I've learned now with the 7-year-old girls that sometimes those breaths
that's harder
are going to end in
yeah.
screaming with you. But there's perspective in that.
Yeah, there is.
That, I can deal with what comes because just them breathing is a blessing in my life.
Yeah.
So I think that is something powerful to think about. It's something I have to remind myself about clearly.
You're a great daddy. I've seen your social medias where you take what would be like, it's frustration or, just being a dad, and just you bring light to it and kind of make fun of it and just document
Coping
the day.
mechanisms, right.
What's the name of your
Dad Ventures.
Dad Ventures.
Yes.
With Wes.
With Dad Ventures with Wes.
Yeah, so go like and subscribe on the YouTube.
Before I end the podcast with you guys, is there anything that you would tell yourself as a parent then, as you're a parent now? If you had to look back 5 years ago, how long has it been?
Since Graham died?
Yeah.
8 years.
9?
Or 20, almost. Well, I
It'll be
guess
9 years
in
this
August. Yeah.
Wow.
March.
Is there anything that the Wes and Kelly today would go back and just give a point of advice to the Wes and Kelly then?
I feel like I'm constantly telling myself now that it doesn't matter. Going from, I guess, first time mom, you're taking all the month pictures and you're making sure you've got this and this. And, are we starting solids? Is he sleeping whatever. And then twins, it kind of breaks down a little bit, that. And then add this third one in. It's it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're not going to be drinking bottles when they're in college. It'll be fine.
Yep.
You didn't take those monthly pictures. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Just do what you got to do and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
You're feeding them, you're loving them, they're clean. That's the bar.
Yep.
So anything you're doing past that, you're doing great. So
that's good. Wesley, Don?
I feel like there's so much that you learn in situations like this. And I think that's what it is that do I wish Graham would not have passed away? Of course I do. I wish that he was still in our life. But every part of my story since then would not have happened had that event not happened in our life. Mm-hmm. It's sad that our girls and Graham don't exist in the same multiverse. I think that's what the kids say these days.
Multiverse.
And that they don't have that big brother to keep them in line. But everything that happens to you is part of your story.
Yeah.
And every decision that you make builds on the next one. And so the life I have today and the things I'm thankful for, I wouldn't have if I didn't have those experiences.
Yeah.
And so I can because so many people that go through what we did go through, their marriages don't make it.
Yeah.
And they don't build the kind of family
I don't know the
that we've had.
statistics, but it's tough.
It's
high.
more likely that a couple who loses a child will end up divorced than not.
Mm-hmm.
And so the family that I have now has grown out of the tragedy and trauma that we suffered. And I do point back to that commitment that we made to each other and to our family in that moment and sticking to that. Yeah. Even though it is not, Marty told us that is the hardest thing we would go through. That's true. It doesn't mean there weren't other hard things we were going to go through.
Life on life's turn is going to happen.
Exactly.
You got the things that are just going to come your way, but you can't have a testimony without a test, but that test didn't define your outcome.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I will say too, it's become more, evident and just I feel like our day-to-day life that sorrow and joy are there, both there all the time.
Yeah.
That one doesn't have to exist without the other. It's not one or the other. They're both there at different strengths at different times in the day, but they can coexist.
Yeah.
It's not the white picket fence that I thought we had early on when Graham was born, but it's a great life nonetheless. And so I think we're both thankful for what we have.
Yeah. And I truly believe he's present with you. Maybe not in the flesh, but I think he's at home with you guys.
I will say at his funeral too, what I remember is somebody was playing the keyboard, and it was like, piano music, blah, blah, blah. And then like he hit a note, and it was like a synth for a second. And we were like, what? Like, because he went like this, like, oh gosh. And I was like, I feel like that was Graham. Like, if you can manipulate stuff like that, I don't really know like what the theology is on that, but I feel like let me do a technical mess up, because my dad won't notice, it's like,
just he's probably throwing in the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse theme.
Right, exactly.
Just a note from that.
Also, this little girl that you've been hearing through this whole podcast is more of a twin to Graham than our twins are actually to each other. So
yeah.
she
looks
she's just
named
like
March because Graham was born in March?
Yes.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Well, Wes and Kelly, I just want to say thank you guys so much for taking the time. One, for just coming to the podcast and sharing what, different kinds of recovery, different kinds of vows look like, but just being transparent. I know this never is ever going to be easy to talk about, but I truly believe that there's going to be a couple or a dad or a mom that hears this, and they're going to hear it at a time when they really need to hear your story. They may want to connect with you. And so if that's okay, we'll tag you guys on our posts and all that whenever this comes out. But I'll make sure that if they reach out to us, I'll connect with you guys. But Wes, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Kelly,
Thanks for
thank you so
having
much
us.
for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Recovery About podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow along on all of our social media platforms. A huge shout out to all of our sponsors. You can find a list of them in the show notes below or on the screen you're watching on our YouTube channel. We'll see you next week. Today's episode is brought to you by S&S Supplies, Belinda Thompson, Rhett Walker, Carpet Cleaning Pros of Augusta, Coleman Construction, Bagwell Insurance, Tree Guys with Ties, Barrow Walden, Kendrick Paint and Body, Roof Savers, Game Changers, City of Refuge, Augusta Magazine, Burrow Elijah Attorney at Law, Communigraphics, The Nonprofit Desk, Corbin Jones State Farm, Paradise Turf, Sally Kohler Photography, Atlas Health and Wellness, Dr. Rhonda Milner, Kendra Neal Studio, Augusta Dream Center, Newsom Electric, New Spring Church, Augusta Lawn and Turf. And a special thank you to all of our other supporters of the Recovery Valve podcast.